Hey, historian Justin Vipperman back this week with a great story for Black History Month. This is the story of Gobo Fango, which, if you remember the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter day Saints, you may find this story familiar, as this story has been told a few times as a faith promoting incident. If you're not a member of that religion, you may also find this story familiar because the Times News has run it several times. The story of Gobo Fango is a fascinating one in which it starts in South Africa and ends in Oakley, Idaho. Gobo Fango was born sometime in the 1850s during during a time of immense starvation. His mother is dying, and in order to save him, she lays him in the crux of a tree and then goes to this white family, the Talbot family. Henry and Ruth Talbot go back out after her pleas and find the boy. There are varying accounts here on how old Gobo was at this point. Some say 1, some say 3. Suffice it to say, he's between 1 and 3 in the late 1850s. Within the next year or so, LDS missionaries then convert the Talbots. The Talbots decide that they want to live with the saints, and they decide to move to the United States. They leave, come across the Atlantic, and land in Boston in 1861. The Civil War is going at this time, and they catch a ride on the train headed to Utah. Somewhere around Missouri, the train is stopped with a mob overtaking it, saying that they're looking for a little slave boy that they want to free. Ruth, fearful that they're going to take Gobo from her, hides him under her hoop skirt, where she saves his life, or at least saves him at that point in time. Maybe not his life, but saves him. The train continues on, and the Talbots move into Utah, where they set up shop as farmers. Gobo, by all accounts, runs around with the Talbot boys in burlap sacks for shoes, and at some point loses several toes over the course of his life, early life, until he's 16. There's also the story of him living in the shed out back, not being able to live in the home. Some people have suggested that he wasn't a slave at this point. Some have suggested that he was. However, he is then sold to the Whiteside family in the 1870s, which is long after the 13th Amendment. However, he does at some point gain his freedom and starts raising his own sheep. Now, in the 1880s, he goes with several other men to Oakley. Some people have suggested that this was the LDS Church pushing kind of this idea of a religious community into Oakley, which did happen in Oakley, but I'm not certain that Gobo was actually asked to go, or if he just went along with the rest of these guys who were going and taking their sheep. Regardless, he gets up here and finds that there are several people who are not happy because they're running cattle on the land up here, while now the sheep herders, right? This becomes a big issue between cattlemen and sheepmen. However, part of the story is interesting because I think that there's another dynamic here, which is that the LDS Church is exerting their dominance into the Oakley Valley, and there's a lot of people who are not happy with that either. So, one half of this story actually has to do with the Gobo side, which is that Gobo, as he is running sheep, is confronted by Frank Bedke in Oakley. Frank Bedke gets off his horse after telling Gobo to get his sheep off of his land. Gobo wants to see a deed. Frank doesn't show it to him. Frank instead gets off and then shoots him in the face, right above his brow, taking off his eyebrow. He pistol whips him and then leaves him for dead. Somehow he shot the abdomen, but that story I'm not exactly clear about, and there's so many varying stories that I'm not exactly certain what exactly happened there, but he does wind up with 2 gunshots. Frank Bedke then leaves him for dead. Gobo comes to at some point, regains consciousness, and drags himself, carrying his intestines in his hands, to Bishop Matthew's house, okay, where then he is read his last rites, and he dies, but not before leaving the last of his money and his possessions to the Relief Society for the building up of the church, the LDS Church there. Now, that is the story that we've seen multiple times as it's been published in LDS magazines as well as the Times News. But in the last few years, I've heard an interesting story from the Bedke family, which I think is fascinating. This one tells that the LDS Church wasn't very happy with the Bedke family because they weren't LDS at that point in time. Frank Bedke gets his wife ready for a party, and they head out in a buggy. But as they take off, they can see that Gobo and some sheep are standing out in one of his fields. Frank Bedke then tells his wife to continue on, and he goes and saddles up the horse. When he rides the horse out to the field, he sees that Gobo is standing there with a gun. We do not know what that means, whether that's a shotgun or a rifle. Regardless, according to Frank Bedke, Gobo had a gun on him. When he rides up, Gobo says, "Are you Bedke?" And Frank says, "Yeah, I am Bedke." And he says, "Well, I'm here to kill you." Some people believe that this has to do with the religious aspect that's going on, but it could be the sheep and cattleman thing. It could be the religious thing. A lot of different issues going on here. Regardless, Frank and Gobo get into a tussle, and Gobo is shot. At which point, Frank gets on his horse and rides to Albion, which is the county seat at that point in time, and turns himself in. Now, he thinks that Gobo is dead. But Gobo, according to legend, lives and goes to Bishop Matthews' house. Frank is tried twice. The first time he's acquitted on 11-1 to acquit, but it's 11-1, so or to convict, but he's acquitted. The second time, he is acquitted by all accounts. Several years later, the trial record goes missing, and so today we don't have that record or what was said in that record. The story of Gobo Fango is interesting, and one that I like to share. I think what's best is that we share both sides of this story, because somewhere in the middle is the truth, right? Somewhere in the middle, Frank Bedke knows what happened, and Gobo Fango knows what happened. Regardless, February 10th is the 135th anniversary of this death of Gobo Fango, and his headstone lies in the Oakley Cemetery to this day, saying Gobo Fango died at 30 years of age. That is another black story in Magic Valley history, which there are lots of them that are starting to come out, and one that we need to continue to look at, especially through February, but of all throughout the year, as we focus on American history, not just one-sided history. So there it is, Gobo Fango, the story that I wanted to tell today. I hope that you all continue to tune in, subscribe, like this video if it's something that you're interested in, and continue to comment on what you're looking for in more history videos going forward. As soon as it gets warmer, I'll take David out, and we'll get out there and find some more history for